I've written 11 different video sales letters that have generated over $8 million in revenue this year in 2025 alone. And in this video today, I'm going to be breaking down my entire strategy for that, how I write these VSLs, why they work, and how you can insert this into your own business so that you can start writing winning VSLs, improve upon your current VSLs, and run a better marketing team. So if you're not familiar with me, my name is Damon. I'm a fractional CMO. I run a handful of marketing teams at the moment that generate as much as $1.5 million per month. I spend a lot of money on ads, spend about 10 to 14 grand per day on Facebook primarily. So this whole channel, it's all about copy, media buying, running marketing teams, all that good stuff. So make sure you drop me a subscribe. I'll be putting out a lot more content related to things of this sort in the future. So let's go ahead and dive into my VSL strategy. So I'm currently writing an offer for myself related to lead quality. So I'm gonna just kind of go through this, how I would, do this live for myself. So this is my general framework when it comes to VSLs. So you hit them with a quick pattern interrupt in the beginning. That's like the first 2 to 3 seconds. Basically, you're just trying to shock them a little bit and do something that's like going to hook them in effectively. You can do this in a lot of different ways. I know Kyle Milligan, I've taken a lot of info from him. One thing he basically pushes is making an almost unbelievable claim and then immediately backing it up and going directly into the benefit. Or there's just a lot of other ways you can do it. But basically, we want to kind of shock them a little bit and just hook them in those first like 2 to 3 seconds, because that is a very pivotal time. If you ever look at like the analytics on a VSL in Vitalytics or Wistia, whatever it's hosted on, a lot of times there's massive drop off in those first few seconds. So hit them with the pattern interrupt. One example of this could be like I ran one for an online personal training business in the past that was an alarm clock blaring at 4 a.m. So basically it would pan to the guy's phone and it's like the alarm blaring at 4 a.m. Why does that work? Because it is basically like a shared experience that PTs have. They wake up at 4 a.m. every day, their phone goes off, it drives them fucking crazy, and it just kind of triggers them. That helps to incentivize consumption. So that would be a good example of a pattern interrupt. Quick hook, we want to just hook them in right away in those first couple seconds. First 30 seconds of a VSL really are make or break. In my opinion, you have to get your point across, get people to keep watching or book that call, in those first 30 seconds. Big claim, tell them essentially what they're going to get, what's the promise, what's going to come about from this. Like a really good one, for example, I used to work for a company called closers.io. This is actually where I got this VSL framework from. And their big promise was we'll place a proven appointment setter in your business and they'll perform or you don't pay. That very big promise. Sales recruiting, really, really difficult. Not easy to get good setters or SDRs, but that is a huge promise. And then, the guarantee is or you don't pay, essentially. So that's kind of one where they mix both. They make the claim, they make the guarantee back to back. And then proof/track record, that would be just general, why should you trust me? Why should you trust this company? How do I know this is real? And then hard CTA. Now, there's a little bit more from this. I do this can be broken out into anywhere from like as low as 2 minutes to as high as like 30. I'm not big on having any kind of set timeline surrounding VSL. I think a general rule of thumb is B2B VSLs, a little bit shorter, 5-10 minutes. B2C, you can kind of go a little bit longer. A lot of times you need to explain things a little bit more versus like with sophisticated buyers, it's good to just kind of get to the end point. So if I'm going to do, well, let me walk through this and then I'm going to walk through a couple of things I try to cover during the VSL. So for my offer, I'm going to rip. It is basically a ebook on how to fix your lead quality. So if I want to do a pattern interrupt, something I've thought of doing here is effectively having, I'm going to sit in front of the camera and I'm going to be playing out loud like a sales call with a lead. And I'm going to have some guy on the other end of the phone basically saying like, hey, Damon, this all sounds great, but honestly, I can't afford it right now. Give me like 6 months and I'll circle back to you. Does that sound good? That's kind of a shared experience a lot of sales guys, a lot of business owners have had because their lead quality sucks. They're talking to broke people who can't afford their services. They're wasting their time and they're just kind of sitting on the phones all day long talking to these kind of like broke leads who are just, giving them the runaround, like, yeah, circle back to me in 6 months or 3 months or whatever. So I'm going to do that as the pattern interrupt. So one thing too, when you're working with video editors, you really have to tell them exactly what to do in these sorts of things. But so that's going to be the pattern interrupt. They're going to see that right away. That's a shared experience. That's the goal there. We're having a shared experience of something that kind of triggers the prospect a little bit. They've definitely been in those situations. We're entering the conversation going on inside their head. They clearly know if they're on this VSL page that this is for an ebook to help improve their lead quality. If they're struggling with lead quality, chances are they've had this issue. So quick hook, that could be something along the lines of, I'm going to make sure in those first 30 seconds, I'm going to explain in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a 6-step process that you can use to improve your lead quality and bring in wealthy, ready to buy leads in as little, let's say, I'd probably say practically overnight. I don't want to set a hard time frame there. So that's kind of the hook, like pattern interrupt, prospect can't afford it. Quick hook, I'm going to show you how you can insert this 6-step process that you can use to improve your lead quality and get ready, wealthy, ready to buy leads practically overnight. Now, what is the big claim / promise? In this case, the promise, I'll get more into this in the one belief section down here, but the promise I'm making is improving your lead quality will improve every single function of your business. Close rates will improve. Upfront cash collection will improve. Client fires will be reduced. Client retention will increase. If you simply fix your lead quality, it will fix everything downstream. That's kind of my big promise here. Like, I am selling them on how important lead quality is. These people know that lead quality is important, but I don't think they necessarily know how important. I don't think they realize like the downstream effects that will take place if they simply fix the top of the funnel. If they simply just stop talking to like broke leads who can't afford their services and start talking to more sophisticated people who can afford it, who will close, who will have like those higher upfront cash collection rates, who aren't going to be like the nightmare client that needs to ROI in your services in the first 14 days, who are actually going to stick around long term and are going to keep paying you for months and months to come. I think a lot of people aren't aware of that, so that's kind of the claim I'm making. Now, I don't have a guarantee in mind. It depends on what you're selling. In this case, I'm selling a $7 ebook. Like, the types of people I'm trying to target are not necessarily people who are worried about spending $7 on something. But if I were to add in a guarantee, a basic one I can do is, if you follow this process step by step for 90 days and you don't see an improvement in your, I'd say close rates, then you get your money back, something like that. I probably won't do that in this case. I'm just giving you an example here of how you could do this. Now, proof / track record. So here I'm just going to roll into social proof. I'm going to roll into a little story about myself. My name's Damon. I was formerly the CMO at Offer Launch. Before that, I ran an email marketing company for 5 years. I worked with a lot of big-time clients like Closer.io, 0%, Agency Lab, RoofX, Freedom Accelerator. I'll just go through my track record and just kind of boom, 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 boom. And especially in this case, if you have like video testimonials, if you have screenshots, just, you want to hammer them with proof. If anything, if there's one thing that I think makes a huge difference in 2025, It's you really have to hammer the proof. We are living in such an age of distrust at this point in time, and you need to combat that. So push the proof hard, and then hard CTA. That just like book a call. I don't like to get too crazy with it. I don't like to go, depending on the market I'm selling to, I'm not going to push like the bullshit urgency or scarcity too hard, especially because I sell mainly to sophisticated people. But especially on book funnel that too, that doesn't make sense. But I'll kind of just loop on the CTAs too. So this is a high level framework, and I just sort of, weave these in. The main things I'm really strict on: you need the pattern interrupt, first 3 seconds, quick hook, these are the first like 10 seconds or so. We want to get the big claim / big guarantee out in those first 30 seconds. If we can get that, then we're kind of golden. We can work the rest in here. A lot of times I'll transition from big guarantee more into an explanation of the model. So, if I'm selling like Section 8 real estate, for example, Section 8 real estate, I'll go through and explain why Section 8 is such a good vehicle. I'll explain the guaranteed government cash flow. I'll explain how, dealing with tenants in Section 8 properties, contrary to what a lot of people believe, is actually not like a really bad thing. A lot of these tenants are, elderly people, they're single moms, they're not like, gangsters and stuff who are like doing a bunch of criminal activities. A lot of it's just like people who've fallen on a bad situation in life. And, I'll go through and explain that whole vehicle and kind of roll from there. And then I'll go into like the company itself. I'll explain the background of the company, what differentiates the company. So, and then the person behind it, if there's a face, I'll go into their face. And then I'll just keep CTAing all the way throughout. And then there's soft CTAs, there's hard CTAs. Like that's kind of how I do that. But now let's move into essentially the strategy of what I'm trying to convey in VSL. Now I got this from Evaldo Albuquerque. He wrote a book, the 16-word sales letter. Highly recommend checking that out. One of the best copy books I've ever read. But he kind of follows this framework, and if you just do this, the VSL basically writes itself. So we're going to go through and answer each of these thoroughly, and then we want to weave these into the VSL. So I like to structure everything around this. Like, what's the one belief the prospect needs to buy? So in this case, I would say the one belief the prospect needs to buy this $7 ebook is fixing lead quality will fix literally every single function of your business across the board. It will make you a more profitable company because it improves every single department. So I think if we can sell them on the fact that fixing lead quality is not just going to like improve show rates or close rates, it improves everything. That is really what I believe is the one belief the prospect needs to buy this ebook. So how is this different than everything else I've ever seen? So I think the main reason this is different is the overall strategy is different. You see, if you look at like what are people saying about lead quality, most people are saying get more leads, spend more on ads, drive more traffic, post more content. It's a volume-based strategy. So increase volume, which implies increased cost and effort. That is what 99% of people I see are doing. They're just trying to pound a ton of volume. If, let's say, for example, you are bringing in, say, 20 leads per day. Your cost per lead is $100, so you're spending $2K a day on ads, bringing in 20 leads per day. 2 of them are qualified. Instead of like trying to get like 5 of them to be qualified, everyone basically just pushes, hey, let's just double ad spend. If we want 4 qualified leads, let's just bring in 40 leads and spend $4K a day. Instead of trying to increase the quality of the leads, which realistically, like there's going to be some increase to cost, but just spending more on ads, that just pushes more lead volume. So this is more honing in on the quality of the leads coming in as opposed to volume. That's the main way this is different. Now, what's in it for me So if you're a business owner, you are lighting a ton of money on fire on Facebook ads, low close rates, low show rates, nightmare prospects who turn into nightmare clients. You can delete all of this from your life. This will not only make you a more profitable business with higher close rates, higher upfront cash, higher LTV, but you'll also have more peace of mind. You'll be more profitable, which will allow you to hire a better team who doesn't need to be micromanaged. You'll be able to finally take that vacation to Italy your wife has been asking you for the last 10 years. You'll be able to move out of being a founder and become a real CEO. On top of all of this, you'll increase the enterprise value of your company, which will set you up for that big exit you've always wanted. Okay, so I just kind of riffed there, but if I'm looking at what did I do here? So here, I make the logical argument. You know, it's like if I'm looking at what's in this for me, let's first address the pain points. This stuff sucks. You know, I've been a closer myself on a company that has really, really bad lead quality. It's just a nightmare. You know, you're trying to sell something that's 20 grand. You hop on the call and it's like some 18-year-old kid who lives in his mom's basement and works at McDonald's and has $20 in his bank account. You know, it's just not a good situation to be in. Not everyone, but a lot of people deal with this. So we're removing a massive pain point from their life. We start with that, removal of pain. So here is just basic logical argument. I look at copy, you know, in terms of just like we're trying to almost argue it like a lawyer. You know, think like you're a lawyer in a courtroom trying to argue your way in to the prospect almost. And then you come in, you work your copy chops a little bit, you make it sound sexy. So I like to have just this really bulletproof argument surrounding, you know, in the back of the VSL. So now we diversify. So dimensionalize. So here, free up your time. Most business owners, they work a lot, you know, and, you know, they got to manage employees. Managing employees, you know, I managed we had as many as 40 employees this year. I had 7 direct reports. It's a lot, you know, managing people it's not the easiest thing to do. If you can reduce your time spent on management, that's huge. Now we're going to hit on the personal side of things, especially the relationship side. A lot of business owners don't have the best relationship with their wife. You know, they don't take time off. So we're going to hit on personal issues that are probably deeply emotional in this case. Then we're going to go towards the identity side of things. So the identity that they want. A lot of business owners, or a lot of founders specifically, they're trapped in this kind of founder mode. They're doing everything. They are taking the sales calls, they're doing the marketing, they're managing the clients, and it sucks. You know, it's I've done that for years. It's not an easy place to be in. They want to be like a real CEO. You know, they want to be that kind of boss ass CEO that has the whole team dialed and all they go is run around, speak on stages and stuff and post content and don't do any actual real work. That's what a lot of people, you know, it's not true, but that's what a lot of people want, I think, in 2025. So we're playing on that ideal identity that these people want long term. And then lastly, another thing, I feel like a lot of people don't do this, but I always try to do this, is play like a big picture move. So big picture, what do they want? This is like, I mean, you could say this is a bit of a stretch, but improving your lead quality, it will help the enterprise value of your company. Like if all of these things fall into place, if you actually run a more profitable business, your EBITDA goes up, you get a management team in place, the business finally kind of runs without you, you have significantly increased the enterprise value of your company, which makes you much more attractive to a potential buyer, a private equity firm, whoever the fuck it is. So, you know, you could say that's a bit of a stretch, but I would argue like lead quality does improve that enterprise value. So how do I know this is real? So in this case, I don't have this, you know, in front of me, but I would just go and find some proof. You know, for example, one of my companies this year where I ran all the marketing for, 75% of leads coming through the funnel were marketing qualified leads, which meant they said they had $15K in liquid capital. This resulted in over $1.2 million a month in revenue at a 4x return on ad spend. Now, I'd probably go and like have some screenshots there and prove. So, all right, what is holding me back? So we got to bake this in there somewhere. So I think the main thing holding people back is they just don't know how, you know, like they don't know. You know you need to improve your lead quality, but you just don't know how to do it. You've tried, you know, testing more creatives. You've tried hiring expensive copywriters. You've read books. But none of these gave you an actual process that you can simply insert into your business and make progress overnight. So now you're just stuck with shitty leads who never close and waste your time. So that's really the thing holding them back. They're not a lot of people sell this. There isn't really a process for it. Who and what is to blame? I would say you could say like sales gurus, for example. Sales gurus who just tell everyone they need to collect more cash. I would say that's probably the best one in this case. You could blame Facebook for giving you poor quality traffic. So yeah, that is a very B2C type of one. That's a very BizOp type of question to ask. I don't go too hard on this towards more sophisticated audiences, and most of my companies do sell to more sophisticated audiences. But you know, on something like B2C, for example, you see like the Matrix. You know, that's a great example of who is to blame. Like the Matrix is coming for you. That's a pretty hot one now in 2025. So if I'm going to do why now, this is a great time to dive into some numbers. So why now? Because every day you don't fix your lead quality, you are missing out on tons of potential deals and customers. So here I'd probably just do some basic math. You don't want to go too deep into the weeds on math, but let's say you bring in 100 leads per month. 10 of them are qualified and booked into your calendar. 50% show up. 20% close. So, okay, 10 leads, 10 are qualified, 5 show, 20% close, that means one closed deal. Now, let's say we jack these numbers up. Let's say, and this one deal is 10K. This is a really small scale, I guess. I'd probably add another zero behind this. But now let's say you bring in 100 leads per month. 50 of them are qualified. 50%, that means 50 are booked in on your calendar. 50% show up. So you take 25 calls, 20% close. Well, actually, 20. Your close rate is probably going to go up because you're taking more volume, so you're getting more reps. So let's jack this up to, say, not a substantial increase. Let's just say it goes up 5%, goes to 25%. So 25% of your 25 calls close. I'm no mathematician here, but I believe that is 5 closed deals for 50K. So you've just added 40K in rev. You've 5x'd your revenue, and it hasn't cost you a penny. That's profit inserted into the business. Why would you not do that today? Every day you are not doing that is a day where you are sitting like if you make 100K a month and you have a clear path to 5x that and make 500K a month, that means every month you don't fix this, you're losing 400K in potential revenue. Let's zoom out. Over the course of the next 12 months, if you wait 1 year, that is 400K times 12, that's $4.8 million. What could you do with an extra $4.8 million? I don't know about you, but I would prefer not to lose $4.8 million. That's kind of how I would position this for the why now. Okay, why should I trust you? I'm not going to go into this one too much, but I would circle back to, where's this? The social proof that I had here. This is where I'd roll into the proof / track record. I'd show some actual numbers, spreadsheets, things of that sort. So yeah, just insert social proof. How does it work? Okay, now I would just explain it. So it's a 6-step process. First, you define what is a marketing qualified lead. In order to get qualified leads, we need an actual definition, not just emotion. Second, we need a way to track it. We need a data-driven system. Third, we need a process for improving those qualified lead percentages. Fourth, we need a downsell system for the inevitable DQ'd leads coming in. Fifth, we need a feedback loop from the sales team that we can relay to marketing to implement in the ads. I actually forget what the sixth one is, but that's kind of the general process. So I'll walk through it each step by step to show what that is. How can I get started? So here, this is gonna sound kind of dumb, but like you kind of have to do this. Like literally tell them what you need to do to buy. So click the link on the bottom of this page. It's going to take you to a checkout page. On that checkout page, enter your address and credit card information. Click buy. That's going to take you to a thank you page with a link to the ebook. There's also going to be some extra bonuses like my 100% show rate training inside of a school community. Check your email for that and make sure you join the school community. So, we got to spell it out like they're a third grader, but you kind of have to do this. I know it sounds annoying, but I do this on all my VSLs for call booking funnels too. And, just keep in mind, people are distracted. The times people are watching a VSL, they might be in the car, they might be in the restroom, they might be in the middle of a meeting. There's a million different things that can go wrong, and you just have to be able to spell it out for them very directly. Now, what do I have to lose? Here, I actually kind of already answered that back here, like this part, but that is the general framework. So now this is like 9 pages, wow. I basically just wrote the VSL here. So at this point, I can just kind of arrange these things. Like I'm going to take this and throw it into the hook. Then the claim, I'll make that guarantee up. I have to add in a few things, but at this point, like I'd go back. I'm not going to do that on this video, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to edit these and flesh them out a little bit more. And from there, I'm just going to like arrange the pieces, arrange it into VSL. So that is pretty much my entire system when it comes to these. I think that the one thing that you really need to spend a lot of time on is this part. This is where I spend the bulk of my time is spent on this, like calculating that one belief the prospect needs to buy, and then the pattern interrupt, the quick hook in the beginning. Like that's where 90% of my time goes. Get that right, and then you have a winning VSL in your hands. So that is the process from end to end. Hopefully this is helpful for you. And I'm going to drop a link to my email list in the description. I'll be putting out more content along those lines. And thanks for watching, and feel free to drop any questions in the comments.